Hey guys, so this is something that I've myself been wondering for a long time. When I was first getting into guns, I'd look at certain inexpensive shotguns and rifles and handguns, and then someone would say, yeah, it's made in China, it's junk. Chinese have junk firearms, Chinese have junk steel, Chinese have junk optics, right? And that's what I heard everybody parrot. But I never saw anybody actually have any first-hand experience other than, basically anecdotal third-hand experience. Where, well, my father's brother's nephew's cousin's second roommate told me that his Norinco 213 didn't run worth a damn. So I was wondering about this the other day, and I reminded myself, you know what? I own a bunch of Chinese firearms. So with it being Chinese New Year, what better time to explore this question than now? So gung hei fat choi. And yeah, let's take a look at some guns. Now the first one we're going to start off with is a Norinco 213. This is a TT-33 clone chambered in 9mm. It's a very, very Browning-inspired design the Russians borrowed from John Moses Browning. And the original one is chambered in 7.62 by 25. This example is in 9mm and was imported by Sportsman's of Miami in Florida in 1989. This I picked up at a local pawn shop for about $100 with about 5 to 7% surface rust. Clearly I didn't care how it looked, I just said, oh, it's really cool. I haven't seen a Norinco handgun for sale in a long time. Now for those of you not in the know, Norinco hasn't been allowed to import firearms into the United States for a long time. Norinco being the biggest arms and ammunition manufacturer out of China. This is because of a special bill passed to prohibit them from importing firearms, which was spurred on by Norinco illegally selling high explosive rocket launchers, missile launchers to criminals in the United States. I digress. This gun gets a bad rap a lot of times. In particular, I've heard a lot of people say it's unreliable. Well, let's take a closer look. No, not terribly unreliable, but it's also very freaking clunky, and the safety is awful. The removal of the safety actually makes the gun safer in my opinion. Well, the safety is located on the left side of the firearm right here, and if you notice there's a giant gaping hole there, it's because I removed it. See, this thumb safety has the tendency to push itself into safe while you're firing. So you'll get a bang, 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 click. Huh? Oh. Recock the hammer, click. Oh, the safety's on. Put it to off. If you're somebody who wants to use this gun for self-defense, that's a huge liability. The only thing worse than a totally inaccurate concealed carry weapon is a totally unreliable one. And if you're like me and you have a high grip from shooting 1911s, you're going to hit that safety every single time. Now you're saying, that doesn't seem so bad. Also, it's about a 7 MOA gun on a really good day. Also, its hammer doesn't hit hard enough to detonate military NATO spec rounds. I tried it out with some of ZQY's NATO spec 123 grain ammunition, and I had about a 20% failure to detonate the primer rate on it. They're thinking, well, I mean, it's a World War II gun, they're not that accurate, they're not that reliable. Fair enough. Here's a Polish TT-33 chambered in 7.62 by 25, imported by Century Arms. It is built in 1952, and the only thing not mil-spec about this gun is this little safety up top that Century had to add to make it eligible for importation. Anyway, let's see how this guy runs. We'll fire at these plate racks. As you can see, it's a fairly accurate little firearm, right? Now this is mil-spec, military surplus ammunition. Hell, a third of those shell casings were cracked even when they were loaded. But, just the same, still an accurate little firearm. Though if you do buy mil surplus 7.62-25, it is quite corrosive, so clean your bore afterwards. You don't need anything special, hot soapy water, and then dab it dry, and you're good to go. But, I mean, that's military guns. All right, maybe China's military firearms aren't that great. What about their civilian ones? Well, first off, the 213 isn't a terrible gun. It just, like a lot of Chinese firearms, lacks final polishing. there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? If Chinese firearms were completely on par with their European or American or Western counterparts, well, they'd be the biggest arms maker in the world because their weapons tend to be a lot more affordable. I mean, hell, ask the guys in Canada who can actually buy the stuff, and they'll tell you that, yeah, their experience is that a lot of them are pretty good. That said, personally, they don't hold a candle to American designs. Here's a good example. This is a Coach gun. It's manufactured by Zhongzhou Machine Works in China, and it retails for about $199 and was imported somewhat recently by Century Arms. These are cylinder bore, not terribly accurate, and it seems like a pretty decent firearm. Problem is, again, fit and finish. Ugh. It's lacking a few little minor things, right? So it doesn't automatically eject the shells. You have to pull them out with your fingertips. And the action itself is very stiff. I mean, so much so that you have to kind of, to get it open, right? But then again, look, you're getting what you pay for. And for $200, if you absolutely needed to have yourself a side-by-side shotgun, it's not a bad little deal. Thing is, for a few dollars more, you can get yourself a Maverick 88, which is essentially a Mossberg 500 with a few components that are a little less durable. So does that mean that Chinese firearms, either military or commercial, really aren't worth a damn? No. And that's kind of unfortunate. It's unfortunate because if it were the case, it'd be really easy to just dismiss all of their guns entirely and say, oh, I guess it's made in China, it's not worth a damn, right? As much as this JW2000, I want to, diss on it, crap on it, whatever you want to call it, it's actually not a half bad gun, right? Frankly, it's a little overpriced for the amount of quality it brings, but it's probably the cheapest side-by-side shotgun money can buy. But just because this design doesn't really live up to the standards of other shotguns, I mean, heck, I'm sure a J. Purdy, a Browning, or even a Mossberg side-by-side is a much, much nicer gun. It's also a lot more expensive. So what am I getting at? Take a look. This is a Type 56. It is a Chinese military-made SKS. This is, it's got a commercial set of furniture on it because when I bought it from Royal Tiger Imports a few years ago, the wood was rotted through, which I knew was going to happen. That was part of the description. Take a look at this guy, right? See that? Flawless operation. Decent accuracy. I'm able to hit that swinger when I want. Obviously able to hit a man-sized target here at 65 yards all day long. And I'm sure if it weren't for the fact the iron sights on this are so minuscule, it's like trying to look through the edge of someone's fingernails, a front-side tower, I can shoot even more accurately. See, the thing about these guns is it's not just the country of origin that determines whether or not it's good. It depends on the factory that makes it. In general, Norinco makes pretty solid guns. Now, Norinco's guns are tremendously collectible and highly sought and highly regarded by guys in the AK community, right? This is phenomenal, and it's among my favorite. In fact, I prefer it dramatically over Yugoslavian SKSs, primarily because of weight. So what's our conclusion here? Is it that only military grade, specifically made by Norinco or the actual, military factories in China guns are actually worth a damn? Not quite. So here's the thing with Chinese firearms, and this is going to be a sweeping generalization, and I'm sure I'm going to get people from China in the comment section telling me how much of an idiot I am. But let me explain something. The issue with manufacturing guns in China isn't that they're not great. It's that the quality control just isn't there. And it's not because they necessarily don't care or they're incompetent. No, that's not it at all. It's because they're trying to make money. I've spoken with plenty of guys who import either components, optics, or entire firearms from China, and every single one of them tells me the exact same thing. You have to have somebody on the ground in their country making sure they don't cut corners. What I'm saying is, there are plenty of great Chinese firearms out there, but do your due diligence before buying one and check out reviews ahead of time. In fact, here's a firearm many of you guys probably have never seen. It kind of blurs the line between made by the military Norinco factories and made by some machine work or subcontracted group out of China. It's based on the QBZ-95, and it's called the LA K-12 Puma. Nice bullpup design, detachable magazine fed gun. And here, this highlights another issue I have with a lot of Chinese firearms. So remember how I was bitching before about the safety on the Norinco handgun, the 213? See, the reason that was an issue is because there's not a lot of civilian ownership of firearms in China. In fact, there's approximately none. Because of this, their selection of testers, so to speak, is extremely limited. So they're not going to figure things out like American shooters would, who say, hey, this safety sucks, we should change this. Or, hey, I don't think the grip angle should be the same angle as a T-square. That's not comfortable. No, it's not. What am I getting at? All right, so I'm going to fire some rounds through this thing, and I'm going to show you what I mean. All right, so I've inserted the magazine, and you can see from there, there's a tab right here. It's like a magazine release. And where's the bolt release? Where's that bolt release? Ah, trick question. That's not a magazine release, that is the bolt release. The magazine release is on the other side. This little tiny piece of folded steel right here, this itty bitty thing is under about 12 to 15 pounds of pressure, is very tiny, very difficult to hit. Which makes sense. They don't want somebody dropping the magazine on accident. Makes plenty of sense from an engineering standpoint or an antiquated military thinking standpoint, right? But from the standpoint of someone who actually shoots these guns a lot, it makes zero freaking sense. The only thing that makes even less sense, that's the selector switch in the back. Yep, this little dial, that's off, that's fire. So you have to reach into your armpit to actuate it. All right. Other than that, it's got an adjustable gas system. It's got that very iconic QBZ95 type foregrip built into the handguard. And I've got some Hornady Critical Defense 12 gauge double-aught buck loaded up. The gas setting is currently on low. It's very compact, you can see. It's an 18.5-inch barrel. You can get up on target pretty quick. I got my EOTech here. It's an older one from the early 2000s. Let me snap up on target here. You can see it's got a pretty substantial amount of recoil, but it's not uncontrollable. I mean, not for double-aught buck defensive rounds. But it definitely lets you know it's going off. Clear? Clear. All right, so hit this wonky magazine release. Look, this is a pretty ingenious design, and I'm always happy to see other countries try their hand at manufacturing specific firearms for the American military market, but realistically, these are some of the shortcomings and other things you're going to encounter when you buy Chinese firearms, or really any firearm made by a country that doesn't have either a ton of shooting sports or a ton of civilian firearms ownership. I mean, there's a reason why CZ pistols are super comfortable. The Czechs love their guns. Same thing with the Swiss. The Swiss love their guns. Chinese, it's a means to an end. If you're going to buy a Chinese firearm as opposed to an American one, that's your prerogative, right? But realize there's no such thing as a free lunch. You're never going to get a cheap firearm that's just as effective, just as polished, and just as well made for the same amount of money. It just doesn't happen. And as a general rule of thumb, if an American company first designed the firearm and a Chinese company went and made a copy of it later, you're better off with the American one, even if it's twice as expensive, because you'll spend at least that getting the Chinese one up to par. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more burst reviews.